Welcome to Building Great People, the podcast where we explore how leaders in business and community are shaping the future by investing in the people who make it all happen. Let's get started. Welcome to Building Great People. I'm 𝗟𝗲𝗱𝗶𝗴𝗶, the Vice President of Real Estate at 𝗟𝗲𝗱 Enterprises. I'm joined today by 𝗟𝗲𝗶𝗴𝗶𝗶 with Precision Components, LLC and Team Machine. And we're just excited to have you today. I know a little bit about your story, but just kind of a couple reference points here. The founder and CEO of Precision Components, LLC and Team Machine, where you train, advise, enable, and inspire organizations and individuals to unlock capacity and increase capability. I think that's a pretty solid introduction there for just that piece.
That was good.
But you have a lot of other stuff that you got going on. You're a best-selling author of 𝗟𝗲𝗱𝗶𝗄𝗏, and Nick is a warrior, a leader, a teammate, and most importantly, a proud husband and father of two young boys. We just talked about that before the show. So I'm going to hand it over to you. I want to know about Nick. Like, what is Nick? And before we get into your business side of things, tell me about you.
Yeah, well, you ended with, I think what's most significant to me is my family and, you know, the amount of perspective gained in life once you enter into both of those arenas, which are two, you know, separate worlds that of course merge at a certain point, really does open up your eyes quite a bit to what really matters in life. And I referenced those three people, my wife and then our two boys. One is 7 and the youngest is 4, are for me at the core of not only why I do most of what I do, but also how I do most of what I do. It's those three people, man. Like, that's it. And so that's how I would define myself in like the shortest possible context is I'm a family man, I'm a husband, and I'm a father. And if it was just that, like, I'd be fine with that. My primary professional life is actually that of an active duty soldier. So I've been in the Army now, serving as a Green Beret for just shy of 20 years. So that really is my primary professional responsibility, is that. And then I get to have this, I guess you call it a passion project. Yeah. You know, kind of a side hustle, which is slowly over the last few years taken on more and more and more, you know, time, energy, effort. Yeah. Which is amazing. And, you know, obviously really challenging and hard and exciting and all the things that come with running a startup. So I think the more accurate way to put my professional life is I really have 2 full-time professions. And one of the greatest challenges I have is there's only 24 hours in a day. And I love all the things I get to do. Yeah. And the clock just moves, you know, too fast, incessantly, and it doesn't slow down. And you're man, I just give me an extra hour. If I had just one more, you know, I could do this, And so it's a great problem to have. That's where my greatest challenge lies. Yeah,
I love that. And you spoke about the family at the beginning, and not everyone listening may have a family right now, or maybe not in that stage of life. It is so true, though. It comes in, it kind of wrecks you in many ways, meaning our priorities change real quick with that, and the driving force behind what we do and why we do it. And if nothing else, you learn a lot of patience. I probably wasn't a man of patience until I had some kids, and those kids make you learn real quick. Oh yeah, it's some great lessons. But man, what a beautiful thing too to be embracing the values that you've chosen for your life, and then seeing that unfold in your kids is probably remarkable. It's just astounding.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is wild, and to that point, and sometimes I'm asked this question, which may come up here organically, is, you know, how do you manage being a professional soldier and a family man, a husband and a father? And I typically will quote General Hal Moore, who is oftentimes known for the character that Mel Gibson played in the movie We Were Soldiers during the Vietnam War. And Hal was a father of 5 and a phenomenal warfighter and soldier. And he was asked that question, and his answer, I think, summarizes it brilliantly. He states, "I'd like to think that being good at the one makes me better at the other." Basically, a two-way street. And, you know, for me, as I entered into the world of being a husband and then being a father not long after that, was easy for me to correlate the values and character traits and skills that you learn as a soldier and apply them to your family life. It's probably going to help you. Discipline, work ethic, consistency, loyalty, like these ethos that we live by. If I apply them to my life in my home, it's likely going to make me better at both of those responsibilities.
That's right.
That was easy for me to see. But going back the other direction, to General Moore's point, took me a lot longer to be able to grasp, and then even longer to operationalize. And one of those tenets is patience, which you just mentioned. It's some of the softer, squishier skill sets, like empathy, compassion, right? Like, you're gonna learn these things. And certainly if you want to be good at both of those jobs,
that's right,
a husband and a father, you're gonna have to learn these skills and operationalize them in the house. But if you have the courage, I use that word on purpose, to take some of that squishy, almost soft feeling kind of emotional stuff and apply it to your life as a soldier, it's also going to make you better there.
That's all right.
You know, it took me a while to learn that, and then take that gamble and bring that into this hardened world of aggressive warfighter, which we live in.
Yeah.
You start to chip away at that a little bit. You start to see, oh man, this actually does work, and you can change an entire culture in an organization like that.
Yeah, I love that, and that's, you know, I'm not from the military world, but in the business world, we can see glimpses of that, and glimpses of this hardened path that people want to take. You know, climbing the corporate ladder. It doesn't matter who you destroy to get it to the top, right? And that's a common theme we see. But you know, that building great people. Coming back to that podcast name. Man, there are lessons learned in these soft skills that when you learn how to operationally put them in place, not to be soft, quote unquote soft, right? I'm not a soft individual or creating a soft culture, but you're creating a culture that cares about the people and uplifts people, but also holds people accountable and responsible for the way they behave, how they complete tasks, what they're expected to do. And it just elevates the entire culture up. And we see that in our households. I mean, I see that in my household when I hold my kids accountable. It's painful. They don't like it. But you also see that growth that happens over time when they start gaining that concept, and now it becomes a part of their habits and a part of how they live. Right. And we don't get to touch a lot of that in this podcast, and so I'm glad we're kind of talking about that for a minute. But I think, you know, I use the words or the saying, you can't serve two masters, and I think that applies here in some ways. I can't serve and lead at home differently than I serve and lead at work, and I tried to do that for a few years, and it's just a painful collision because I'm two different people. And when you can recognize that there are a lot of shared values there, and you can start working together in that, I think your family gets stronger. I think your relationship with your spouse becomes stronger. At the same time, you're able to build deeper connections and empathy for the teams that you're working with, you know, at your workplace, which yours is a lot different than mine, but still shares some similar characteristics. You have a mission, you got to accomplish it. But definitely a challenge in many ways, and we fail a lot, or I fail a lot at least. So
which is also kind of the beauty of it, is you get it wrong, and that is where most of the knowledge is located, is in failure. Like, if you need to win in the failure is not an option scenario, in order to do that, you have to get it wrong a whole bunch of times prior to that.
That's right.
You know, so this like train to failure mentality that we have on the teams, putting that into action during training and during the buildup is essential. That can be difficult to do. Our egos get in the way. Our pride gets in the way. Fear gets in the way. I don't want to be labeled as a liability, or I don't belong here, or, you know, all these things, these concerns that you have, particularly as a younger junior asset in that organization, which is why I think it creates an awesome opportunity for the leaders, those with more seniority, which are definitely two different things, to demonstrate that. Like, no, here, I definitely just botched this, and I know it. And like, we all need to be aware of like the error that I just did, so we can learn from it.
Man, ownership, extreme ownership.
That's it.
It's all the way. Man, so I want to go back a little bit. Obviously, you're not from the South. we can hear it in your voice.
True story.
But I love that. And I'd like to ask you, being an outsider to the South, and maybe the way you were raised, going back to your background and before you ended up in Clarksville, what do you see as, even just geographically, that difference in how people operate here versus where you're from?
That's a good question. I've been out of Boston now for almost 20 years, and really my locations were relatively limited. Once I came into the military, and I was in Georgia for less than a year going to initial training, and then I was at Fort Bragg, North Carolina for almost a decade. and then from there to here. So that's really it. But I can tell you with really both of those cultures that I've gotten a chance to live within, one of the major differences is the pace in which people tend to live. You know, up north, whether that's Boston or New York or Jersey, you know, that like kind of tri-state area of us Yankees, that if you're not from there, we're all the same. Yeah. Right. We're all Yankees. There's no difference. We all have the same accent. I oftentimes like, oh, you're definitely from New York. I'm like, I can understand why you would think that.
But not.
but not. But if you're from there, there's like wild differences. Yeah. You know, so it's a very small area of the United States, but very distinct cultures once you're there and you know it. But just, and I'm speaking in generalities here, absolutely. Of course, right? There's certainly areas in Massachusetts that are much like calmer and quiet and slower paced, but generally they're very fast paced environments. People talk fast, they walk fast, they talk, they're doing things on top of other things. Yeah. So the op tempo and the pace of life in general is quick. And I grew up in that environment. You know, I grew up in mostly urban environments where it's like, it's fast. You got to have your head in a swivel. Like you don't know what's coming, what's going. This is the way I grew up. You know, you get outside that bubble, whether you're in the South or get kind of into the flyover states and move out towards the West. And a lot of those cultures, they're just a lot more easygoing, a little slower. That's right. Which I think draws a lot of people that want to come in, kind of retirement, pre-retirement area. I just want to like slow things down a little bit and like breathe in some air and just kind of take in life and be mindful of where I am versus constantly on this hamster wheel of like hustle and bustle and go, 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 go. Yeah. So there's beautiful things about both. This isn't better. I'm not making a better or worse than comparison, but to answer your question, the speed and pace of life in general, up north versus down here would probably be what stands out. Yeah. Well, it just, again, you know, I think you're right. There's some distinct differences there. And coming from the South, growing up in the South, you know, we're known as to be a little bit slower to do things. You know, we enjoy life a little bit. We're not on island time quite yet. But, you know, we definitely have a different pace than, you know, when I go visit, I have family from Pittsburgh. And I just think it's interesting when organizations meet, when they have people on both sides of that coin, right? And how they interact and how you motivate each other, because I think we get such in a mindset that it's us versus them kind of deal, right? Like, you know, y'all are faster and you just want to go hamster wheel style nonstop, where we're like, hey, slow down. And it's like one's wrong versus the other. And it has nothing to do with that, right? No. It's just different styles of doing things. And so you've been in Clarksville how long? I got here in 2017. Okay. Was that 8 or so? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so the beautiful thing about the military is you have a just absolutely diverse group of people you're working with. Oh, yeah. Probably from all over the world. All over. Yeah. So maybe even more globally speaking, how do you work within that environment of dealing with people from all different types of backgrounds, all different types of work pace, and then performing at a high level? Because that's what y'all are. You know, the Green Berets are not known to be slackers. So performing in those kind of environments, how do you motivate people? How do you get people to buy into that? Yeah, it's a good question, man. I mean, so oftentimes similar to North, South, East, West, the world of special operations kind of all gets painted under this one broad stroke of these are all special forces people and we all kind of do the same thing, maybe. But there are definitely some distinct differences. And I bring this up because what we do in the Army Special Forces, otherwise known as the Green Berets, our primary mission set is known as unconventional warfare, which is a kind of a sexy buzz term. But if you dive into the definition of that, 2 main words need to jump out at you. And those are the terms with and through. That is what we do. Green Berets work with and through indigenous personnel, which means that it would be incredibly unlikely for a group of SF guys, I say that, I mean Green Berets, to go do any kind of mission or solve any kind of problem, just us. There's a lot of special operations units that we have that are built by design to work what we call unilaterally, meaning just them. So these 10, 15, these 20 guys are going to go do a thing and solve a problem and then come back and do it. That's not what we do. We embed and we work with indigenous personnel with and through. So we are very much in the relationship business. That is what Green Berets do. We are in the relationship business. So whether it's internal to our organization or external, you're dealing with people from a plethora of different kinds of backgrounds and cultures and ideologies. And staunch positions on certain things and opinions on certain things. And what we need to be mindful of is, one, we're the professionals here. That does not mean better than. It just means our mission is to be able to forge and foster a relationship, create enough rapport with this group of people, establish that bond, and then be able to guide that or influence that into a particular direction. That is what we do for a living. That is why we get paid by the United States taxpayer, is to be able to do that.
Yeah.
My point is that whether you're talking about in business or in military or in life, oftentimes we want to try to assimilate the environment or the people in that environment to our beliefs and our values and the things that we think are important. We are in the business of assimilating to the people we are trying to influence. We have to come in and be in receive mode. We have to assess. We have to learn what we don't already know prior to getting there. When we actually get to our spot, it's like, we need to get to know these people. We need to assimilate to them.
Yeah.
That's our job. And that's part of the skill and the art form of being in this relationship business. Yeah. We need to jump out of planes and slide down ropes and shoot guns and blow things up. Yeah, we do the cool guy stuff, but we're in the relationship business. Leadership and influence and inspiration and enabling and empowering are our key weapons that we really are wielding to create that desired end state.
Yeah. Man, what a perspective. I've never heard someone lay that out, and I've lived in a military town my entire life. And that is fantastic. Being in the relationship business, I feel like that actually conveys to everybody. And people just don't always see that. They don't get that. And they get focused on themselves, and they don't realize how important it is to build relationships with people. But man, you said some absolutely just nuggets there of information, and meeting people where they are at is part of that relationship building. Expecting people to fall in line with what you believe is just so difficult. And it's a battle that's almost lost. And then one other thing you said is you said art form, and I'm wondering if that's what you're talking about when you're building relationships, because there's some science, sure, but a lot of it's art. It's a skill that you have to learn and practice and practice and practice over and over again. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we know, according to psychology and neurology and physiology, there are certain tactics we can employ that can create an effect within somebody. There's a science to persuasion and influence, but I would argue that the art form is possibly more significant, because even if you have all the data and you have the substance of how to go about doing something, without the delivery being an effective conduit of a delivery into someone's mind or heart or soul, then the science isn't going to matter.
Yeah.
You have to be able to make that connection.
Yeah.
And those are some of those intangibles that does require practice and reps and purposeful training to be able to hone that stuff in. And dude, I am almost embarrassed with how long it took me in my professional career to recognize that leadership is a skill. Embarrassingly long time. And I was on my, 5th or 6th deployment when this dawned on me as I was going through making a relatively significant shift in my career and moving from a non-commissioned officer to a warrant officer. And you go through this whole board process, and my group commander asked me a question I wasn't prepared for, which is, what is your leadership philosophy? And it just caught me totally off guard. And that was the trigger for me to recognize that leadership is a skill. And up at that point, to me, it was more of a talent, maybe something that you were kind of born with or without. And you either have it, you're charismatic, people will listen to you. You have it or you don't. And while I would argue talent exists, it's a thing. And some of us have attributes and qualities that set us up for success. It is absolutely a skill. And like any skill, if you're not deliberately training and getting in reps on those skills, then you will be incapable of performing it, certainly to any degree.
Yep. Yeah, we at 𝗓𝗏𝗋 spend a lot of emphasis on that. And part of our culture is one of our core values is leadership. And so we expect people to be on a pursuit of leadership. And we're all at different levels, right? And some of us are just babies entering our company, and some of us have been there and leadership journeys a lot longer. But one of those expectations comes with it is, what are you doing to be a better leader? And being a better leader doesn't mean being a boss or being a supervisor. Leadership goes beyond that. And I know you see this in what you do, but it is absolutely reading the books, listening to the podcasts, having a coach, seeking mentors, seeking people around you. We talk a lot about this in our groups of the people around you are also you. Like you are a product of the people you surround yourself with. It's very easy if you show me the 5 people you spend time with for me to probably make a pretty good judgment of who you are, right? And I think there's a lot of truth to that when we look at our company and say the people that we want here are leaders, and so we're going to surround you with really good leaders. And I think without that, you kind of are just lip service. You're not doing anything to gain that. And yes, you can be born with some qualities and some traits that set you apart and you have a little charisma, but some of the greatest leaders they're not charismatic in the way that they're loud and vocal in the front center of everything. Sometimes they're the quietest people in the room. And you follow them because they have something, they found something that made sense. Right. And those are intangibles. And I kind of wanted to ask you that question, or in your mind, from your background, because you come from such a different background than who we usually have on here is, but what are 3 things or 3 defining characteristics of a great leader in your mind?
I think a great leader.
A great one.
Okay. If we're talking like great leaders.
I'm talking about great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great leaders lead, I would argue, primarily with values. People follow you based on who you are and what you represent. That's, of course, earned over time, where you're around people long enough for them to get a sense of those things. It's more about who you are versus what you say. In and out of let's use the boardroom or the office space or the team room, like in and out of that environment, this is who you are and how you live. And it's based off of that I want to learn from you and follow you and aspire to be similar to you.
Yeah.
I would argue that that's probably at the pinnacle. And if the small that make it to that point, because it's a journey that make it to that point, you now have the amazing and awesome privilege of now forming new leaders. But your job at that point is to fine tune leaders to come in behind you. You're not so much focused on early development of skill and capability. You're trying to work yourself out of a job.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get this select few to like where I'm at, so that I can ride off and be replaced. If you're unpromotable, you're irreplaceable. I think that's the sentiment. So we're constantly trying to work ourselves out of our current job. I think so. Leading with values, I would argue, is reserved for the absolute greats.
Yeah.
Caring fiercely for the people around you. And it's really easy, I think, for people to genuinely think that they're doing, quote unquote, the right thing by coming into the workplace and trying to put on this facade like they care. Like, I'm supposed to care, so here it is. This is something entirely different. This is you genuinely caring about him and her and their kids and their people. That's not like a nice to have. That is your responsibility should you want to be a great leader. There's a difference in those two things.
Absolutely.
And I think most people can see right through one versus the other. It's like paper mache.
Yep.
And then you're probably working yourself backwards if you try to put on this facade mirage of me caring. It's like, no, I actually give a shit.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm investing in this person right now. So they know that to be true.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of working at maybe backwards a little bit. The last that comes to mind is humility. Leadership is a never-ending journey. We will forever remain students of the game.
Yeah.
And I think just when you think you got it nailed, it's like, this is the way you do it.
Yeah.
Like 10 minutes later, you're like, oh,
humbled.
Like, what I've learned to this point, what I've been doing, that there's been some successes there, but like, here's another gap that I was unaware of.
Yeah.
And now it's just, and I think for many that never-ending journey is almost too daunting for people to want to get into. They get comfortable and like, no, I'm just going to stay right where I'm at and kind of get stuck in my ways.
Yeah.
And this is the way we've always done it. This is the way I've always done it. Look where it's gotten me at this point. Like, it's tried and true. If it's not broke, don't fix it. We have these like cliche expressions that kind of almost enable us to stay in that one place, because the truth is, to continue to venture outside that, it's really hard. You're going to keep getting it wrong.
Yep.
And like, how much endurance do you have to continue to get it wrong and continue to want to learn and press and grow and try new things and mess it up? It's tiring.
Yep.
You know, so people get to a certain point, they're like, no, this is kind of it, and I'm good.
Yep.
It's like, okay, cool, man. Like, this journey isn't for everybody.
Yep. That's right.
And that's all right. But I think that the absolute greats, whether you're talking about leadership and also like war fighters, and this sometimes catches people off guard that don't come from the world I live in, the absolute greats, humility is an undeniable theme amongst all of them. I'm talking about some of the most savage, lethal human beings that have ever walked the face of the earth. These are people that are capable of deploying extreme violence on behalf of a cause, on behalf of our country. They're the most humble people that you've ever come across. They treat each other with respect. They listen. They're coachable. They deploy gratitude. They're honest. They have a high degree of self-awareness. It almost is confusing, right? Like the very stereotypical, tattooed, bearded, scary looking. You're like, there's no, as humble as they come. I think that that's an undeniable quality, whether you're talking about being a warfighter, gunfighter, or a leader, and one and the same, because those worlds merge, of course, is having that degree of humility to continue to learn and be able to put that ego in check and treat each other with respect and be cordial. Yeah.
Man, again, just amazing like perspective on all of that. And we're currently reading, we're going through Good to Great. And I don't know if you've read that, but such a fantastic book, and honestly, just so aligned with that. Humility is such a big and important thing. And I'm thinking right now of my wife's boss. His name's Larry, and runs Elite Gymnastics. I'm not sure you're familiar with this. So shout out to Elite on this. He's a former SF guy, was a sniper, and man, I know he was a savage back in the day, but also one of the kindest humans I've ever met, and still looks a little scary, but my kids love him, and it's because he has a heart that's authentic. And I think partly what you were getting at too is authentic leadership. And it looks a little different sometimes depending on the situation, but there's some true values that I think ring through and through, no matter if they're war fighters, whether they're in the boardroom, whether they're out on the assembly line. And that is that humility, that authentic leadership, the principles you said, serving others, unwavering values, which is so rare. Like, I love how you said that at the very beginning, because that filter is so small. Man, it's so true. That a lot of people, that when they walk into work, they're a different person than when they walk out. But those unwavering values, I can stand beside someone that I don't always agree with everything, but if they believe with every bit of them, this is what's true, I'll stand with you. Yeah. I don't have to agree with all of it, but I'll stand with you on it. So I think there's so much there that is true. And I want to transition a little bit. You mentioned something about, in your story about chasing a mission. And talk to me about what that means in your world, because I think in the corporate world, when we talk about mission, we kind of put these mission statements up there, and they're a little arbitrary sometimes. They feel arbitrary, but we spend a lot of time and effort creating mission statements. And at the end of the day, I don't know if we accomplish what we want to accomplish in that, but you come from a world where a mission may be laid out and you have to go accomplish it. And it may not always go to plan, but you've been in the corporate world, you've been in the military world. Talk to me about missions. What does that look like?
Well, for one, I think it's critical that it exists. And whether you're talking business or life, as I've learned over the years of working with different organizations across the country, whether it's organizationally or maybe more importantly, a lack thereof individually, how many people are just floating through life without knowing what their mission is. It's just, it's sad.
It's very sad.
Really, just day in, day out, just going through the motions. And I'm like, you guys realize that this game we get to play here right now, known as life, like, it's gonna end. Okay. This is a finite game that we get to play, and it's a gift. Like, statistically, this isn't a higher power. This isn't my spirituality. This isn't my Christianity talking. This is just math. That the likelihood of you being you is essentially impossible to have happened, according to statistics. It's an absolute gift. It's one that will end. And yet you lack a vision of what it is you're supposed to be or who you are. That's unfortunate. So identifying it, I think, is critical. I would say in business, we tend to spend a lot of time in wordsmithing this like perfect mission statement to try to make it concise and captivating and motivating and all these other things. And I get all that. I do it as well.
Yeah.
I think it's an important tool to have to like quickly let someone know like, this is what we do here. Okay. This is what we're doing. Got it. But I think maybe more significantly than that is to be able to take that and then apply it to the individuals. Here's our company's mission, or here's what's been given to us. Okay. Like we will go accomplish this. Okay. What's your mission? Outside of that, forget that. That's been given to you. I want you to give me yours. And I think that that's connected to caring about the individual. That's a huge element of relationship development. It's a huge element of influence and inspiration. If I know that about you, I'm going to operationalize that.
Yeah.
I'm going to leverage that, not against you, not to hurt you, but to help you and us.
That's right.
Right. So the question then is like, well, how many times can you do that in any given organization? You think Jeff Bezos is asking every single person in Amazon, what's your mission? Of course, that becomes a mathematical impossibility,
That's right.
which is why you have a chain of command and you delegate this, but you create a culture where that is just systematic as it's moving from top down to your frontline workforce.
Yeah.
So the lack of mission, I think, is a tragedy and travesty in life and in business. But I think it's our responsibility as leaders is to take that and develop a connection with that to an individual. So it's something that they can sink their teeth into, that they're excited about, that they're passionate about, that they feel a sense of purpose behind. And now I feed that in line with my or our mission. And I think when you get that cycle of collective to individual and both are feeding each other, now you've created an absolute unstoppable force.
Yeah, I love that. We talk about like building the bus. Well, maybe a lot of people don't actually talk about building the bus. Talk about getting on the bus. We find people, the right people to get on the bus. And I don't know how familiar you are with that from the military world, but it's probably pretty similar. You know, we at 𝗍 or other companies that work for, we want to get great people on the bus. We don't talk about the bus itself as much, which to me is what are the values and things that we share that we want the people on the bus to also share? Because that's a key concept there. You may have other missions or motivations or what your legacy wants to be, things that you live for, but we should still share some of those same values. So they're on that bus with me because we share those values. But this is the part that I've struggled with forever, and it kind of came about recently as an epiphany. Leo, which you've met and talked to before, he's always talked about getting on the bus. But always the next question is, well, where's the bus going? And if you ask Leo, he'd be like, well, wherever you want it to go. And that took me a long time to figure that out. But I think it's because we didn't have our bus assembled, if you will, yet. Our bus has been assembled now. And where we're kind of at is that bus and that destination is largely decided upon by the people in the bus. If that bus was already headed to a destination, it's hard to get the right people on that bus then, right? Because they're not going to be bought in. Their mission, the things they're living for, the things they want to accomplish, it's really hard to find people to align with that after it's already gone. But if you start with building the bus correctly and getting the right people and then in the right seat, that bus and that destination kind of organically happens because they figure it out. They're high achieving. They want to do that. And that may be similar to you and the things you've experienced. But I just know coming from our world, a lot of times there's a lot of confusion because people want to put this goal in front of people. And I think goals are important. Don't get me wrong there. But I think sometimes the goals forget the people that are going to be enacting those goals. And they got to be aligned.
Yeah.
And if not, you're not going to have the buy-in. You're not going to have the commitment. You're not going to have the ferocious, just absolute dog that comes out to go chase that dream or that goal, because that's what they should be. They should be things that are out there and crazy and wild and accomplish really cool stuff is what I call it, even though it's hard.
Yeah.
So
it's a really, I'll use the expression fine line maybe to try to figure out or walk, where you want to give your team enough insight and intent and vision as to where we see us being in 5 years, 10 years, 12 years. Like where are we going? Here's what we do. Here's our mission. Where are we going? So vision, very basic business stuff. Got it. I think people want to know what that is.
Absolutely.
Okay. You then also want to be empowering and enabling the people to start making choices on what are you doing today in your team or yourself as an individual to move generally in that direction. And then what happens is you get 17 different sections that are all spiraling in different directions. Some are moving towards that idea. Some are like way off high and right.
Yep.
So then what's the recourse? Do you like take everybody like, all you guys are wrong. This is what I said. Go try again. Or do you feed into that a little bit? And I don't think there's a right and wrong answer here. There's a lot of it depends on size of the company, scope of the company, how many people. Yeah. There's like, but here's the beauty and the like almost frustration of getting into this crazy world of business is, I don't know. Let's try that. And one thing I come back to, and I may botch the specific math here, but I believe it was referred to as the 15% rule that I want to say Google was accredited with creating. Maybe they stole it from somebody else. But essentially it was for 15% of your day during a 40-hour work week, you can use company equipment, resources, supply, even some capital. There's, of course, like some constraints on this, on whatever it is that you're interested in doing. Just go bananas. You want to use, you need this server, you need this software, you need this hardware, you need this whatever, like it's yours. 50% is yours, which I think comes down to around like 6 hours a week is dedicated to them. Those are huge investments that Google's making. These people don't come cheap. If you're doing this across a company that
billions,
big, you're talking about tens of millions at a minimum is what you're investing into these people. What came out from that after the course of like 3-5 or so years of them doing this were offerings like Google Earth was created. So you got the higher ups that are like, here's what Google is doing. And they're revolutionizing tech and search engine and all this other crazy stuff that I know very little about. Here's what we're going towards. 50% is yours because I want to invest in you and feed into some autonomy, some mastery, some passion, some purpose. These are all powerful drivers in human capability. We want to invest in that. It's going to come at a price tag, but I believe in the concept. And the result of that, one of which is a multi-billion-dollar platform that no one on Google was even thinking about.
Yeah.
So you take these shots, I think, knowing it's going to come with costs. There's no such thing as making an investment without cost.
Yeah.
Whether you want to buy a share of Google stock, like I don't just get that for free.
Yep.
I have to give something up. I no longer get to buy the Jordans that looked cool. I'm putting my money here and I hope that it materializes into something of greater value down the road.
Yep.
Same thing in humans.
Yep.
You cannot invest in a human without there being a cost associated with that.
Yep.
When you make those costs, some come back with zero positive ROI.
Yep.
You're going to take losses.
Yep.
You have to know going in that that's going to happen.
Yep.
But if you at least believe in the concept behind it, maybe, or perhaps almost inevitably, if you do it long enough, you also get a Google Earth.
Yeah, man, you're spot on. We met this morning and a young lady in our group had just a profound question, but it was really a statement to our organization during our little leadership book club. And she asked a very simple question, said, well, how do you get people in the right seat if they're not there? And while we're not going to answer that's not the question. What I realized in that moment is that when we look at our organization, it's so easy for leaders to think they have all the answers for everything. The reality is most of those answers are already in the room, but it's not with the leaders. Our teams have already figured out how to fix most of our problems. They know the answers. They know the people that aren't in the right seats. They know the people that don't need to even be on the bus. But we're sometimes not able to listen in a way that I think is good. And I don't know if that makes sense from your world, but from my world, I really put an effort into building those relationships with my teammates so I can get that information. But the reality is there's still a brokenness between leadership sometimes and the workforce, if you will, and how you bridge that gap, and then going down in and saying, y'all have those answers. I just want to clear the obstacles for you. That's my job, is to serve you, is to make this better for you, not for me, not for my gain, but for your gain. If you're frustrated with a teammate, and I'm over here thinking this person's so great, I know their family, I think they're awesome, whatever, right? And the reality is they're dragging down that team. Well, then they may not need to be in that spot, and I'm hurting everyone else by leaving them in that spot. So really, man, this is Unbelievable. I really am appreciative of that. I want you to talk a little bit about precision components. We didn't get a chance to start off with that, but
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about that. What is it and how did it get started?
Yeah, I mean, the short summary is that we're a B2B service provider. We focus mostly on leadership development, mental toughness, team building, performance wellness. So that's essentially what we do. By virtue of keynote presentations, I want to say we've got about 25 or so professional speakers. We'll do inspirational talks. We'll do training workshops and seminars and things of that nature. And how it began is, it's a great story. It's me at my kitchen table 3 days before becoming a dad.
Oh, wow. Okay?
It's about 1 o'clock in the morning. I got a little bit of bourbon. And I'm sitting there, my wife is set to pop at any moment, right? I'm sitting there, I'm having trouble sleeping. And I'm trying to think about how the hell am I going to do this? I have no idea. My whole world's about to change. I've got all the advice coming in from my father and other mentors on, all these things you hear when you're about to be a parent, and most of which rang to be true. How am I going to do this? And you mentioned a word already here during our discussion. That's the word legacy. And for me, up until that one moment, legacy to me was a very shallow, self-centered, egotistical concept to get behind. The idea that I'm going to live my life in a certain way or do a certain thing so that after I'm dead, people will like glorify me on this statue like Rocky Balboa in Philadelphia.
Where's my monument? Yeah.
Where's my monument? And to me, I'm like, that's the last thing I want to be doing. I want to be living for me. Like my passion, my purpose, the people I care about. That's how I want to be living. But when I was on the verge of becoming a dad, was the moment that changed. It wasn't about it wasn't about the masses. It was about that dude that was on his way.
That's right.
That's where at least it began for me. And it certainly has grown since then, because it's not isolated solely to our children.
Yeah.
It's about the people whose lives you have impacted and what you've done for them and their character development. That lives long beyond your time. That's something I can get behind. So as I'm sitting here kind of navigating through this whole rebranding of this word, I also realized that up until that point, being a professional soldier, being a Green Beret, really wasn't what I did. It was who I was. Like my entire identity was wrapped up in that one function. And that belief got me through a lot of really hard times to get into the game, to stay in the game, and just keep being an asset to those people. But I realized there's got to be more to me than this. This can't be all it's about. Right? I believed it. So I didn't know exactly what that would be, but that was the initiation of the next kind of evolution of my professional life beyond military service. And, you start surrounding yourself with great people and just start putting pieces together and trying new ideas. And it's awkward and confusing at times. And, you fall down a million times over and over again. It's the cliche things, but it's true. And then it almost just starts to turn into its own animal. And now you're trying to like keep up with it and almost pull the reins back. Like, oh my gosh, here we go. It's happening. I don't know what's coming next. I have an idea, I think. And so it's a wild and crazy ride to be on. And to think that experience for me started, initially 7 or so years ago. And then it took another 3 or 4 to kind of even start putting things together. We've been operational. This is year 4. And now we've got 75 people on the team. And it's just, you look up and you're like, that's how awesome. The hell did this even happen, man? So it's very humbling. It's incredibly rewarding. We get to see the effect and the impact that we create. A lot of the work we do is in person. So you're literally seeing light bulbs go off on people's heads. And you get that immediate feedback from them. And then the aftermath of, I'm going to change my life starting right now, and here's how I'm going to do it. What I love about this, and I'll close here, is the unknown second and third orders effects of that one little nugget, that one seed that was planted. Because who knows what this guy does with that. Does he have kids? Does he have a spouse? Does he have friends? He has a professional team. Like, where does it end? Where does it go? And that's kind of a fun little journey for me to go on as I'm thinking about what we do, how we do it. It matters. And I think that when you go into entrepreneurship, those that do well tend to aim really, really big. Like they shoot they shoot to change the world.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the mission we're on, and let's do it.
I love that, man. That's powerful. And I love how you just, the catalyst for so many people, I think, is family and this realization. And maybe not everyone, but I think there's these moments in our lives that are mountaintops where we just like awakened, and there's a, not getting the spiritual side, there's a lot of power of being in nature, but when family is involved, I had the same moment when I had my kid where it was just like, man, what do I want my legacy to be? And it's not about me. It never was about me, but I thought it was.
Sure.
And having good people in your life, you said it again. I think these are all core foundational things we hear time and time again when we bring people in that are of your caliber. It's the people you're around. It's the people who are pushing you to do better. Things that we have heard our lives throughout our lives and sometimes turned against and not followed.
Sure.
And then to come back around and be like, oh yeah, you were actually right.
Yep, you got me.
Dadgummit. Yeah.
Yep, you got me.
And then you also said something else that I push leaders now that I work with. It's just as much about giving back now. My job is to grow and push new leaders to step into those positions and to find their opportunity to also breathe life into other people. Leadership is so much more than a position. And in fact, I don't even equate it to a position. You can be a leader in anything in life.
100%.
And leaders doesn't also mean you need 1,000 followers either. I don't believe that at all.
Nope.
We can be a leader going grocery shopping. It's just taking care of people around us. And people are attracted to that because I believe it's so rare today. Authentic leadership is rare. And so, Nick, thank you for being on our podcast. You are not only a hero, and thank you for your service, but thank you for what you're doing, I think, in the leadership community. If you haven't checked out Precision Components, I encourage you to go check that out. Where can they visit you at?
PrecisionComponentsLLC.com.
Awesome. And I know you're located in the press. So make sure you reach out to Nick. Tell him hi. If you're a company out there looking for some leadership advice or just how to advance, I think Nick's in the business of solving problems. And so I'm sure he'd be happy to meet with you, talk with you, and to hopefully help people out through their journey. Business is hard. That's a reality. Business is really hard.
Yeah.
Probably life's a little harder, but you throw both of them in the mix. Man, we got so much to live for. You're right. It's a gift. Every day is a gift. So thank you for listening to our podcast. We're so excited you joined us. I hope you'll continue to join us on this journey as we learn about building great people and continue to follow Nick. So thank you again. Just Nick, I mean, I'm lost of words of who you are and what you've done. And I hope we'll have you back another time to really talk more about your story, because I know you have a pretty powerful story in itself of just even getting to this moment. Yeah. But I think you just hit so many things I think I wanted to lean into on this one.
Cool.
And hopefully we'll be able to have you on again.
Yeah, we'll do it again. Look forward to it.
Thanks, everybody. That's it for today's episode of Building Great People. Every leader has the power to shape the future by investing in and developing the people they lead. Keep leading with purpose, growing with heart, and empowering those around you. Strive to be the leader who elevates others, and together we'll continue building a better world. See you next time.